July 15th, 2026. It is the DDA regular meeting, and let's start by doing a Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Kimberly Harper, do you mind doing roll call today?
Not at all. David Giddens.
Present.
Supervisor File.
Present.
Tara Hansen.
Here.
Sam Morocco. Absent. John Doolin.
Here.
Gus Zatuna.
Present.
And Kim Harper. Present.
All right. Moving on, review of the agenda. Do we have any additions or deletions that we need to make to the current agenda?
My last name's spelled wrong in D. I don't know if it matters or not in the minutes.
In the minutes?
Yeah.
Oh. Looks like a typo. Is that the only place?
That was the only one I saw.
Okay. So it's probably, we probably need to just make them for,
Yeah.
when we go to approve the minutes, we'll probably just have to make that change. But no additions or subtractions to the current agenda? All right. Moving on, we have to approve the minutes. So from June 17th, 2026, that was our last meeting. So I would like to make a motion to amend the agenda to have Tara Hansen's name spelled with one S instead of two S's. Anybody second?
Support.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. We also have to make a motion to now approve the motion, or sorry, to approve the agenda as written with that change.
Motion to approve.
Second.
The minutes, but yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Moving on, line item F, presentations. We have a pathway study for Dixie Highway, and Noah Confraus is here to present that.
Good evening, Steve Sutton, Noack and Fraus. I have with me Mark Sandberg with our Noack and Fraus office, and then Chris with Carlisle Wortman. Together, we're teaming on this project here, which we've talked about in some detail to you folks before, but we've had a chance now to actually look at it in some level of detail, and we wanted to hopefully engage the public, but we haven't seen anybody yet, but we'll certainly go through this presentation here and just give you our initial thoughts. This isn't a proposal as to this is what we are recommending to do. This was a data gathering experience to hopefully get feedback from obviously the DDA team, but also the general public. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mark and Chris, and they're going to walk you through really the three corridors that we're focusing on. Dixie Highway from the township limits, north to south or south to north, the small portion of M15 till you get to the village limits, and then White Lake Road.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Mark Sandberg from Noack and Fraus. I'm a landscape architect at the company. We're looking at the southern portion of the township here, and really the southwest corner between Clarkston and the township limits. So you can see Springfield to the west, Waterford to the south. And let's see if we can move forward here. There we go. Here is a somewhat recent safety pathway map. In red are the existing safety paths. And I believe at the time this was printed, it included some of the 6-foot pathways along either side of these roads. And there's also some green pathways that you can see here that are residential or somewhat residential streets that serve as pathways, though there's no sidewalk adjacent to them or separate pathway. So what we noticed is that in these focal points and corridors that we're really looking at here on White Lake and Dixie Highway and Main Street is that there are existing portions of concrete, some asphalt, but mostly concrete sidewalk that qualify today as safety paths. They're 8 feet wide, concrete from edge to edge, and there's clearance on either side of them. So where the areas are really thick with this dash blue and this dash pink, those areas do not have a safety path, whether there's no sidewalk at all, or there may be a 6 foot or 5 foot sidewalk that just doesn't qualify anymore as being safe for multiple users going both ways. We are from Noack and Frous. Chris is from Carlisle and Wortman Associates, and we're teaming together as a engineering, landscape architecture, and planning team to assist with this project. Tonight we'll be presenting some strategies, standards for streetscape design and safety paths for pedestrian safety. We'll discuss each of the quarters a little bit separately, and we'll discuss some safety concerns and highlight what we see today. And then we'll identify some opportunities and constraints, and hopefully with some feedback from everyone, we can set forward some future planning to push this forward into the next phase. I'll let Chris talk about some streetscape design standards, but there's 4 elements that we're looking at. It's hardscape, lighting, furnishing, and landscaping.
So one of the goals that we have with this entire project is to try to really tie the corridor together. It's one thing to have a safety path. It's another thing to have it become an amenity that both defines the appearance and the appeal of the corridor, and also provides some different recreation opportunities, resting opportunities, encourages people to get out and bike and walk more. And so we looked at those 4 elements, as Mark just said. And I'm not going to go through these things in detail. I just want to give you a quick overview of what we're thinking about. When you think about pavement, for example, having a consistent width and texture and appearance of that walk is going to be really critical. When we did the pocket park design, brushed concrete was the form that kind of rose to the top, but there are a lot of other options too. And when you think about those crosswalks and how you might use that to differentiate the district from elsewhere in the township, there's a lot of options. One that I've gotten kind of excited about recently is the idea of stamped asphalt with thermoplastic coating over the top of it. It gives the appearance of pavers without having all of the maintenance of pavers. As you probably have seen on the highway right now, the existing pavers are kind of lifting up in a lot of spots. This, theoretically at least, solves that problem. So the real point though is to make sure we use durable materials that are consistent with Michigan weather. Similarly, curbs and edges. How do you define what you want between the safety path itself and the side of the road? There are stretches of the highway where you've got grass right now and it's working beautifully. But there are other spots where it's going to get a little bit narrower and that grass may struggle. So do we want to figure out something different for that area? Some places have ground cover in place, like I think that's a creeping thyme there that might work. We're showing grasses and perennials. I think that would be something would be in a very limited capacity where you've got adequate room between the path and the road so you're not having any kind of vision issues. There's a lot of options with that. But one of the other things here that's shown is a curb extension. So where you've got it going onto on certain roads where you want to try to limit the distance that your pedestrians and cyclists have to use to cross the road, that might be an option that we can consider. Crosswalks and ramps. You're going to hear a lot about ADA compliance from Noack and Frous, but high visibility crosswalk markings I think is going to be really critical. Right now, all the way up and down the highway, you've got where there are crosswalks and they're few and far between. It's 2 single white lines, whereas if you had what they call zebra stripes, or actually there's a number of different names, but that's the one that I've latched on to. That's a high visibility marking that makes it really evident that, hey, look, somebody might be crossing there, pay attention. It tends to slow drivers down, makes it a lot safer for everybody involved. As we think about having mid-block crossings, right now you've got 2 stretches of road that go for over a mile with no crossings at all. So what happens? The cars just start flying. I'm sure we've all experienced that before. It's already marked as a 55-mile-an-hour road, but if you had some kind of a crossing in the middle with appropriate lighting and safety markings, that would be a way to slow things down a bit more, makes the corridor a little bit more pleasant, and again, makes it safer for everybody involved. And so I already touched a little bit on street markings. There might be opportunities for bollards, although I think that's going to be a pretty rare occasion. Using crossing panels may be an opportunity too. Certainly pedestrian crossing signs are going to be a big deal, especially if we do get into putting in mid-block crossings. So what Carla has been focusing on so far is the idea of respites. And I'm not sure why, there we go, that's a little bit better. Sorry about that, I was wondering why there were two on the page. And by respites, we're looking at the idea of maybe not a full-on pocket park like we're proposing for Gateway Park, but just a little area where you might have a bench, some shade, somewhere to sit and just relax for a minute as you're walking along the corridor. It doesn't have to be elaborate, but if you've got room and you can make something a little bit more special, that may be an opportunity too. And we'll talk some more about some different options for that. So this is Clarkson Dix Plaza Park. I'm sure you're all familiar with it. It's a really good example of what a larger respite space might look like. So it's as simple as that, having a few benches on there, some nice landscaping, just an interesting walkway, and it really sets off the front of the building behind it. And it becomes a nice amenity. Now with this one, unfortunately, there's only one crosswalk leading to it, so there may be an opportunity there to improve that pedestrian flow too. I think I'm gonna turn shared use pathways over to Mark.
Sure. I know some of you here were here for our shared use pathway presentation a few months ago, but it's a good time to incorporate this into the entire streetscape design. There's already a really nice network of 8-foot wide pathways through the township. And this slide really just explains what they're for, right? They're multi-use, they're accessible and available to everybody, whether they're on wheels or not, whether they have mobility issues or not. And they provide connectivity between more than just homes and recreation areas. They're also mobility avenues for people to get from businesses to schools to parks, all of the above. These are some examples in the township of recent.
Excuse me,
Go ahead.
do you want us to hold our questions to the end, or do we want to ask as we go?
I think it's a small group. I'm fine with asking.
I think it's okay too.
I think as we go, I wasn't sure if
Let's
you're
do it.
gonna go through things and then summarize, so that would be my question. Are you going through everything, like everything's like blocked off differently, or do you go through things and then you're gonna summarize everything in the end?
We had intended to go all the way through and then kind of circle back as needed to different sections. But, you know, I think this is something that we could easily have a back and forth discussion as we're going along.
I think
there.
that would be
Thank
much
you.
easier.
Yeah, for sure, as
To
we
get
go,
through
instead of
ADA
going
and then
back.
ask questions, it's gonna be a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
For
So-
sure.
Okay, yeah, let's go.
Do you have a question at the moment?
I do. So right now, I remember when the safety paths, and I don't even know if they were called safety paths back in the 80s and 90s. When they first came out and everything else, we started putting them in the township. It was against the township rules to ride your bike on them, because there was fear from people walking that they were gonna get hit by a bike. Today, we're concerned about people on motorized bikes, right? The e-bikes and everything else. When I sit here and I look at these types of things, I don't see them built for the future. I see them, it looks like to me more of a moment in time type project. You know, things are gonna keep on going, mobility is gonna happen, all right? I mean, motorized mobility is just gonna keep evolving and keep evolving. So one of the things that I'm a little concerned about, when you sit there and show this, you show the shared pathway here where it says pedestrian use only, I don't think that's realistic. So in other projects you've done, is there been ways where you've taken these new, right, we have an opportunity, especially on the backside of Dixie, like you said, there's nothing there. Do we have an opportunity here to say, okay, we're gonna carve out a lane, if you will, or some kind of section for, I don't wanna say motorized, right? Because I mean, even people now, older folks are getting around in wheelchairs that are more motorized and everything else. You know, for them versus somebody who's walking versus somebody who's riding a bike.
It says cyclists up there.
Right, but he means to like separate them out, like when you're at the airport and you're riding down the thing and it says walk or whatever it is.
Stand.
It's,
Mm.
yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
And like to single it out, cause like when I look at this picture, I agree that like all I'm seeing is e-bikes flying down and passing me, pushing a kid in a
Yeah.
stroller. Like, are you guys avoiding that somehow? Are you putting, I know speed bumps isn't the right idea because the safety of people going over them or falling and not seeing them, but like, is there a way to work through that? I'm sure we're not the only community having e-bike problems.
I'm
I
sure
see- I
it's
see
a
them on
pretty
the
hot
sidewalk all the
topic.
time.
It's conditional, so like we showed on the big community map with the shared use pathway map, some of the roads are residential streets with a speed limit of 25, and they are comfortable to bike on for just about every biker, whether they're, or cyclist, whether they're going 20 miles per hour on an e-bike or more, or they're just biking with kids and going slow. When you get to a road like Dixie Highway, where is there a good space to bike right now? Whether you're on an e-bike or on a BMX bike, it's conditional. So a lot of other communities are proposing bike lanes for that reason.
They're
that-
proposing
that-
what?
Bike
Bike
lanes
Bike lanes, okay.
in the road, maybe with a barrier, maybe without, but
On 45, 55 mile an hour roads?
they can be, yeah.
If you've got a buffered bike lane with, where you've got the 5-foot bike lane and then a 3-foot wide or wider, buffer on the side, that's where the bollard thing that I showed just a moment ago might come into play. And
What
our-
was that, by the way? Was that the post?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
because
so
that, your
the-
next page, previous page was blocking the
Oh,
verbiage.
yeah, can you?
So I thought that's what it was.
I blew this up, it was open in the browser, so here you go.
Back the other way.
One more?
I thought it was.
There
we go. There you go. Yeah, so they're flexible delineator posts is a better term than bollard, because bollard implies a rigid, fixed structure, whereas these are, they'll move. If a car hits it, it'll move, but it's still, it's a visual barrier that slows, or keeps trucks and cars from going into the bike lane. We've got them all over Ann Arbor, and I've seen them used successfully in a number of other places. In Wixom, they actually designed it so they have, on the Michigan Airline Trail, they've got a bike-only lane and then a pedestrian-only lane for certain stretches, like in the downtown area. So those are things that can be done. It just takes more room, and, you know, as Mark's gonna get into in a moment, room's at a premium. So if we can get the necessary easements, you know, it adds a layer of complexity to it, but there are possibilities for things like that.
I went, because I'm gonna say that my top 3 resident complaints are around the safety path bikes, kids on those things, e-bikes. And they say, go out there. I'm not going to. I'm not gonna send the police out there. I'm not gonna send out code enforcement to try to run these kids down. I'm not gonna, that's gonna cause more problems and more accidents than, so to me, I look at you guys to try to help me solve part of that problem. And since we're looking at, especially on Dixie Highway, I think throwing the kids in the road, in the highway, that's not an option in my opinion.
Yeah, and the challenge with e-bikes is they do serve a really valuable purpose too. If you've got somebody who's mobility challenged,
Yes.
an e-bike is something that lets them get out there and actually experience being on a bike and out in nature. So that, you know, there's a real benefit to them. But of course, there's always somebody that likes to abuse it. And how do you balance that? It's really tricky. Again, these guys can talk more about it than I can. But it is something we have to be aware of as we're moving forward and try to come up with some sort of design that can address some of the concerns. And it's a tough one, but it's something that's definitely in the back of our minds.
Yeah, I'd add on the other hand that bike paths aren't intended for pedestrians to walk on, so you're correct, the safety path is not intended and designed for e-bikes or as a bike lane. It's a shared use, avenue. It's for multiple users of different mobility capabilities and devices, so it's not either or, but it would be more of an and question. If we're trying to incorporate e-bike avenues, we have to think of something different as well.
This is a little off topic, and I apologize.
That's okay.
But my understanding is that there is a bill right now, and that's looking to come out of committee or voted on, that will say that townships that have 60,000 or less residents, golf carts will be allowed on the road.
Oh, fascinating.
So, I mean, is there any chance that can pass? Because that's the other big problem, is I hear, is people are taking golf carts and whatnot on those safety paths.
Mm.
Yeah.
There's a lot of
Yeah.
them by Dixie and White Lake.
I think they have to be made street legal before they'd be allowed on the road, but yes, I think that's
I see
very,
them. I get a lot of
very
customers.
realistic.
Yeah.
From the neighborhood across the street.
But I mean, do you guys know
They don't go
if,
that
where
fast.
that's at or anything? guess.
I don't know.
You gotta read the MTA, man.
Okay.
Have we had any discussion with property owners to know if we can get the width of the sidewalk that we
Read
need?
those too.
Like on the Dixie Highway like, can you go back to that map?
Sure, we'll actually move into that
Oh, you will?
section.
Okay, then you can answer it, that's fine.
Most of these corridors that we're looking at have a pretty established right-of-way, except for the western portion of Dixie.
That's
Where,
probably the part I'm talking about, like in
Yeah.
front of that hospital area right there.
Mhm.
Because like, I live right there, and like, to me, the width, I just don't see where you're gonna get the width of the sidewalk there.
right, and there's a
So
few
what
things
is,
that we
how
can
does
do.
something work like that, though, if you can't get the width? It's a narrower sidewalk in that area, and you're closer to the road with no buffer, or?
So a few things. Easements, acquire the property would be another option. But typically, an easement would be maybe the easiest way to go, where it's still the owner's property, but it's being used as a sidewalk.
And then when there's like a retention pond or water flow there, we just put the sidewalk there and hope it doesn't overflow into it and cause water issues underneath the sidewalks?
Might need more than that.
Okay.
So we'll get into that a little bit.
Top right.
Yeah, here's, this is Clintonville Road in Independence Township, so there's actually about 3 different paving surfaces, including the boardwalk. There's concrete that runs up to the boardwalks to anchor them into the bank, and then most of the pathway is asphalt. Boardwalks are expensive, and asphalt is less expensive. Bridges, of course, would be the most expensive.
And you have to maintain them more. right?
You got it.
I also think that we do need to look to the future more so than existing ones. I see a lot of these put into place to cover areas like the crosswalks, and they're totally abused. They don't mean anything to these drivers. And Dixie Highway is, as far as our concern goes, is a very fast-paced, moving, no room for adjustment type of an area. And I think when they're explaining how they're qualifying and what they're used for, I think we as a board need to look at futuristic ideas more so than what's currently existing. So many of these you see on Telegraph already done, in Pontiac between Huron Road and Square Lake Road. They've used those crosswalks. More people get in trouble there than they help. They don't slow down the traffic. That's exactly what we're gonna run into on Dixie Highway. They're used in so many places. People have tried them. Trial and error, right? And I just don't see it being realistic for our use.
We had a subcommittee meeting, it was me, Sam, and Gus, and we talked about maybe the need for adding one crosswalk, because there's no crosswalk between Maybe and, say, Andersonville. So we, if anywhere, we'd probably maybe put one at the bottom of the hill, kind of close to Gus's liquor store. I guess there's apartments over there, so people
Yep.
do actually cross them and they just jaywalk.
Yeah.
So it might be a good opportunity, and it was brought up by Chris, that, in that situation, you have overhanging lights, flashing yellow.
Similar to here?
Similar to Sashaba, but much brighter. I've been
Yeah,
through
people
some
don't stop
townships.
for those.
Yeah, that one you almost can't see, especially during the day. But there are more brighter, and then the reflective crosswalk strips, I call it piano keys, but you call them zebra stripes.
I guess that's my point, is that that has been tried in a high-traffic area, and people ignore it, just like you know, just because it's already established. It's already established, or people are used to what they're used to. And unless you made it permanent, like a permanent stop or something, which I agree, it's needed, but we're gonna have to go further, I think, because Dixie Highway is so busy and so strong of cars. Eliminating a lane to put a bike lane in is crazy.
Yeah.
With the traffic load we've got,
Yeah.
I don't know, I just don't see these,
I guess what I'm seeing is that what you shared last was the shared safety path, so you can do bikes, they have the dotted line, almost like a road you can pass if you need to. It's not like there's a ton of people walking up and down it, so.
and we're not gonna solve all of the traffic
Sure.
or the transport issues, however, like you said, you put the e-bikes on those, and it's just like a freebie, free for all. Just my thoughts on what we're looking at.
Any other questions while we're here?
We're
We're
gonna talk a little bit about some treatments that might address your concerns, at least a little bit. We were talking about the idea of, we'll cover it when we get there, but I'll make sure.
Yeah, just
Talk
keep in the back of our
yes,
minds as
definitely.
you're going through the presentation,
Right,
what we're looking at.
Yeah, this is the same slide as before. You'll see it pop up, and then we'll move to a certain section right after this slide. But we're gonna look at the western portion, near I-75 to White Lake Road of Dixie Highway. Here's a couple landmarks for those who frequent the area or don't. We've got Oakland Schools Technical Campus at the northwest end, Walgreens at the White Lake intersection, the Deer Lake Athletic Club leads to White Lake Road and into downtown Clarkston. And we'll go through these relatively quickly. There's major challenges, not only with property and right-of-ways, but there's gaps in the existing sidewalks and in the existing facilities around them. So you look at, this is showing, the main large picture is showing the southeast edge at White Lake, and then this is the extent of the sidewalk at the northwest edge near the new condominium or apartment development, single-story condominiums near I-75. And the sidewalk just goes to nowhere, and when it crosses the street, it also goes to nowhere. So how do we connect to that? How do we work with it? Those are questions we're thinking of. We have safety concerns along the shoulders. At this whole stretch of Dixie Highway is large widths of sidewalk, but they weren't really intended to be sidewalk. They're raised shoulders for maybe emergency use. People are walking on them though, and it's a 55-mile-per-hour road. These don't qualify as safety paths.
What would you have to do to those to get them to qualify as a safety path?
We'll get into that as we go. We need an 8 feet width pathway, whether it's asphalt, wood, concrete, even crushed stone would qualify. But we need a buffer space as well. So usually, in our case, we're looking at 2 feet on either side, so that someone who's riding on the edge with a bike with handles has clearance from utility poles, trees, branches, brush, anything that could possibly be in the way, including railings on a boardwalk. So the boardwalks are typically a little bit wider to accommodate movement and people passing by at maybe a relatively greater speed than walking. We also need to look at easements between this 12-foot minimum width of an area. Do we provide an easement so that there's ample room for the city or the township to work in that area if it's needed? And looking at the bottom left, the proposed right-of-way sometimes interferes with all of these things, so it varies. And you'll see that here, especially in this stretch. The white lines are property lines, and a lot of them are running straight through the middle of the highway. So they're probably pretty old, were deeded a long time ago. And so it's a 120-foot width of right-of-way through the whole stretch, but in some areas it's about 66 feet. So we would want, in order to put a safety path along the northern edge of Dixie Highway here, we would need to adjust or acquire easements or propose easements or something like that, which would all come at a cost.
If you get an easement for a property, do you require the property owner to address the trees, or is it something we would address as the DDA to, because obviously if you go back, those, like, take this stretch from Stonewood to White Lake, right? That stretch of very heavily wooded area that you need to acquire, is that
Right.
on the DDA to then deal with the trees and trim that down?
Do you guys have any comment on that?
That's a function of the construction of the pathway.
So you're just buying the easement and then we deal with it, right? We're not requiring them to do anything?
Yeah, homeowners would not be responsible for anything maintenance-wise within the width of the easement.
There's lots of obstacles, whether it's landform itself, utility poles, lighting poles, even street signs are in the way. And of course, the existing pavement poses something that needs to be worked around or with. In this case, this is right outside of Cruz's Deer Lake Inn. We'd likely need to propose a retaining wall if a safety path were desired on this side. Either that, or it's moved just 2 feet back from the curb, and all the lighting poles are also moved. And further down the road, all the utility poles would need to be moved as well, which is pretty exorbitant cost for something like a pathway. Then we have other issues that are more environmental in nature, like a large wetland on the south side, just really across the street from this. There's a condominium development just south east of it, or just northeast of it, I believe. And we have to think about what could be done there, but typically a boardwalk would be the best. We could scoot it just a few feet from the curb again, but what does it accomplish? What does it provide? So we're looking at hydric soils here in orange, and the green striped areas are actual wetlands. There's not a whole lot around here, but there are some, and even building a pathway on historically wet soils could pose an issue down the road. Now we're gonna move over to the Main Street and eastern corridor of Dixie Highway, which is much more commercial in nature. There's multiple gas stations, multiple landscape supply stores, Kroger, Starbucks, McDonald's, more fast food than that. There's restaurants, car dealership, and several strip malls. In comparison, the environmental issues are a little bit less here. This is the floodplain of Greens Lake and Dollar Lake, shown here in blue and orange. But most of that's already been handled by a boardwalk removal a few years ago. And these roads already do have safety paths. So here's an example of some of them on the south side of Dixie. When you look at the north side, it's all pavement against the shoulder. It's 9 feet wide. It's pretty reasonable width. It's just, again, right against where people are driving and turning. Here we're highlighting some concerns at Mabee Road. All of the crosswalk striping is faded. The pavement's in decent shape, but it's not apparent to someone driving through that there may be any crosswalks at all. Again, at Main Street, which has been newly paved, there is a crosswalk, or several crosswalks, but it seems like a challenging area in that cars are making wide sweeping turns to get from Main Street to Dixie and from Dixie to Main Street. There's a lot to look out for, maybe a lot of visual clutter as well. So this would be probably a focal point to look at, especially as a kind of a gateway to downtown Clarkston. Here's the crosswalk at Mabee and Dixie Highway. Again, fading away a little bit, maybe a different color of pavement or different treatment to how that crosswalk looks would provide a little bit more of a signal that there is in fact a crossing here.
I think we need to do, uniform crosswalks, up and down like that. The two lines, they fade, which we just saw, and it's not that visible. When we were at the subcommittee meeting, we were talking about, I think Sam brought it up, that at Bowman Chevrolet, there's a crosswalk on the side with the restaurants like Crispelli's, but there isn't one on the Bowman side, and that's where there's, they have a dealership across, so their porters are going across there without a crosswalk, and it's just, it's dangerous. It's waiting for an accident to happen. So adding one there is definitely a must on the right side of that yellow circle.
Okay, right across Dixie.
Yeah.
Yep.
Are you thinking maybe we should do something different with that intersection entirely?
It's on the table.
I don't
Yeah.
think that's achievable.
Maybe
That's-
not.
That's MDOT's intersection, that'd be a major problem.
Are they in charge of painting the stripes too at MDOT, or are we?
MDOT would be, that would be a maintenance item.
Right,
as a part of
isn't
it.
that on them?
Yes.
So in the meantime, we
Yeah.
should have them doing that? Since it's
Make
faded?
clarification.
Yep. Too bad they
This-
didn't do it when they just did all these curbs.
Yeah.
And we shut down the whole street for a month.
Yeah.
Be too practical.
This is the frontage of the Chevy dealership along Dixie Highway. New curb, some asphalt patchwork, but the sidewalk does end at the parking area. So it kind of leads people into the dealership, but doesn't lead people to Main Street. Here's more curb repair in the background here, but in the foreground, it's showing a pretty wide 8-foot path. This would qualify as a safety path, but it leads again into a walkway where those curbs are being replaced. It's right against the shoulder.
This is like the tap. Is that what this picture is?
Yeah, that's the
tap?
that's
Yeah.
the parking lot to Crispelli's right there
Mhm.
with the curb. The tap's right behind it.
Does anyone notice some issue here?
They don't line up?
Right.
Yeah.
It's a jog across the entrance, but more than that, it's not apparent that there's a crossing here, really, and some people might just assume that it is a shoulder when they're driving by,
It's
so.
a turn lane.
Mhm.
It's a turn lane.
Quick review of this, these are all things that we could do as treatments to make this visible and address the problem. Some are just striping, some are complete redo of paving.
Is there a community that has that stamped asphalt anywhere? That like it's been put in and we've seen it seasonal and it's lasted and
So
it's,
that's when you're driving on the freeway and you see the, I-94, I-75 interchange stamped on the concrete there, that's the stuff. I haven't seen it with that exact, brick pattern laid down in the area. I did talk to one of the vendors of it, and he said they're using it in a couple different cities. I'd have to contact him again and find out if he can get some examples.
I'd be interested to know like what their winters are like and how much salt gets put on them and like can it stand the test of time?
Yeah.
It looks pretty, but if it is the same as everything else, Michigan winters are hard.
And that was my first question to him. Again, he pointed to the freeways, and I know that, all around Chicago, they've got those things everywhere.
Seen 'em in Canada,
Chicago
too.
weather's a little bit milder than
In
ours,
Canada.
but not a lot. And again, we're seeing it on the freeways here, so at least in that respect, it's worked pretty well. I don't know how it would hold up as a crosswalk feature, but there's nothing that really indicates that it should be any less durable than, tens of thousands of cars going across it on a daily basis on a freeway.
Thank you.
Cheaper to repair.
Yeah, much. Yeah, so I'm gonna just, Actually, I don't know if we're getting into the lighting and the, I think
Not
that's going
yet.
to, not yet. You
Yeah,
want-
we'll-
let's-
let's
yeah,
discuss the
just-
other
let's-
quarters.
So again, here's reflective paint. The two stripes that you've got now is that same reflective paint, and obviously it wears down over time. But if you've got a wide, the width of these two tables here, stripe that's clearly visible, that's gonna start to address your concerns about people going, well, is there something here? And we're gonna touch a little bit more. Let's, I'm sorry, you keep on. I didn't mean to-
No, it's absolutely fine.
And I don't mean to be the guy, that negative guy, because I hate that, actually, because I just want to, I sit there and think about downtown Clarkson. Cars are only supposed to be doing 25 through there, and they don't stop at the crosswalk with the cones,
With the
with people
flag.
holding flags. I mean, so I'm kind of with it that I don't think painting anything on the road's gonna do anything. The brick asphalt thing, aesthetically, it's pretty. I think after the first 3 times the car runs over it, they're not gonna pay attention to it again.
So, it's kind of interesting. A professor of mine from grad school is retiring this year, and she had coined this phrase called cues for care. And the idea behind it is that if you show something intentional that catches somebody's attention visually, it makes them stop momentarily, psychologically, and it at least makes them think that, hey, there is something happening here, it must be delivered, I should pay attention. So having a different crosswalk stripe, I agree with you, like, once you get used to it, you tend, it just kind of goes in the back of your mind. But if it's different enough and there's enough cues that come through over and over and over again in the corridor, it does have an impact. And if you slow down one person, that has to, by necessarily, slows down the next people behind them. So there is definitely an impact by putting these types of traffic calming measures in place. Is it gonna stop somebody? If somebody wants to be doing 70 miles an hour down Dixie, they're gonna do it if they can. But if it slows down 2 or 3 or 4 people who then in turn slow down the other people behind them, that's when you start to see the impact. And again, it takes time, but people do start to respect it eventually. So I understand your point, and I agree with you to a degree. But I do think that these things aren't just window dressing. They do have an impact long-term.
Maybe we could mix the decorative end with rumble strips or something. That really wouldn't be a speed bump, but it'd be something like they do down the middle of the road in expressways, the little rumble bumps.
For the crosswalk?
Or sometimes a raised
Might as well run
crosswalk.
it as you're driving over it, though, it's a
But,
little too late.
but you're hearing it as you go and you're
But can we do that
acknowledging
since
it.
it's MDOT's road?
But I don't,
We have power
I
to
don't,
do
I don't
that.
think we can do any of this.
And I don't know
think we
whether
can
it's
touch the
ADA
roads at all.
either.
Without permission.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I don't even think we can touch the roads. I think they said this is an MDOT responsibility. So a lot of what we're talking about is really not relevant to what they're presenting.
So
From the way I'm hearing
MDOT has worked with other cities in the past, and the prime example I can give is the city of Howell, where they've got a state trunk line going right down the middle of the city. They have slowed down the speeds quite a bit. They put in the mid-block crossing, done some different striping and so on. And at least through downtown Howell now, those traffic levels, even though they're still very heavy, are much, much slower, and it's much safer to walk and bike. So they will work with the community. You just have to present the vision to them, and then it's a matter of negotiating exactly how it's gonna work out.
Okay. I think to Kim's point, if I can just clarify this, I think what she's saying is the rumble strips would come before the crosswalk to get their attention.
Okay. No,
I
it's
will-
it's
I
a
will
good
say-
idea.
To your point is that we are in the process of buying the easement on Rite Aid, which still deals with MDOT, and MDOT's fine with it. They have their own little procurement things, you have to get
Right.
2 different quotes, and they have different requirements and appraisals. But they're more than happy to work with it, especially since I said we'd pay for it.
Yeah.
Right, so then I think that ultimately it comes down to the money with even MDOT.
Yeah.
Hey, if you're gonna pay for it, do what you want.
Right?
I don't wanna say it's that carte blanche, but it's,
It's easier.
Yeah. I think I'd point out too, on a road like Dixie, we're not putting a crosswalk without a traffic signal. So the light It's a beacon too, right? A visual
Mhm.
beacon, red, means stop, don't cross until you've got the green light, right? This is the section of these corridors that has the most safety path currently along White Lake Road. And on the east side of the road, it's almost entirely, if not entirely, qualified as a safety path. So those 3 strips on the west side are the only areas that do not have full safety paths. The one on the north here is just grass and vegetation. There's no pathway at all. There's a narrower pathway here, I believe 6 feet. And then also here, there's either no pathway or a 6-foot pathway. So really, either side of the road is more or less consistent pathway. We just have a few breaks here and here and here. The clearance might be an issue on some of these where technically you're supposed to have 2 feet of clearance on the side. There's a wall right up to the pavement. But I'd say the average person would feel like their arm could cross over the top of the wall, or a handlebar could cross over the top, and it might actually be safe enough. But it would have to be analyzed to ensure that it's wide enough. Some of the pavement is in pretty good shape, some is in a little bit rougher, but overall, it's nice. Here's, I believe this is not Stonewood Drive, but it's the Stonewood
Village Park.
Village Park, yeah, Stonewood development. And there's a nice area for crossing here. If there were an intention to bring people from one side of White Lake to the other, it might not, doing so might not require any further safety paths north of Village Park to Dixie Highway.
Is that the bus stop? I feel like you guys brought
Yeah, they
this
go
up.
across
Yeah.
the street, some of the kids, some
Yeah,
middle school
so
kids in the morning.
my question is this stretch of the road governed by the state, or is this township
County, isn't it?
It's a county road.
road commission? Okay.
Mhm.
So if I heard earlier the rules correctly, this is something we could potentially impact without getting MDOT involved?
So this would be a great example. If you were to institute a crossing here, it would have to be signalized. The road
Yeah.
commission would never allow anyone to try to make a 3-lane crossing without a signal. But the entity, the governing entity here on White Lake would be the road commission. On M15 and Dixie Highway would be MDOT.
Okay, thank you.
Steve, just a clarification, when you say signalize, you mean, like a pedestrian type signal?
Yeah, they call them hawk signals.
Lock signals, yeah.
Oh, so the whole bar across the whole dang,
Like
the one
on
that just
Satchel?
cost $400,000 at the elementary school?
It could be, they're very expensive, but
Yeah.
that is
The one
the
on Walton?
type of.
Yeah.
That's what we would be required to put right here to cross?
That's the type of signal if you were to cross Dixie mid-block, they call it.
That's like a $600,000-700,000 crosswalk, like there, that,
There are different hawk lights out there that are just on the side without the bar over the top.
Okay.
The bar over the top gives you the opportunity to have downward lighting, and that really increases the visibility, especially at night, even though you've got these bright yellow lights flashing. If you can see somebody going through the crosswalk, it makes it obviously much safer too. So, again, using Ann Arbor as an example, just because I know it too well, we've got those individual hawk light just flashing on the road all up and down the street by where I live.
without the crossbar and all that?
Yeah.
Okay.
How is it?
Residential
How is
street?
it for light pollution, being you live there? Like, is it?
Oh, it's not a problem. It's intermittent, so it's only, somebody comes up, it's pedestrian signalized. So they push a button, the light flashes, it goes, I think, 30 seconds or so. And people buy, and again, not everybody, but most people respect it and do come to a stop. If nothing else, it gives you that alert that there's something going on, I've got to pay attention, and you start looking both ways to make sure you're not going to run into anybody.
Is that a 3-lane area that you're talking about, or is that a 2-lane?
5.
Oh,
It's really the entity in charge that makes that decision, and it's based upon traffic volumes and other factors.
so it'd really be the county
It
anyways?
would be
that's the empty count is the
Here's more of the character of pathways along White Lake Road, actually pretty nice. There is a nature preserve on the west side that has some existing safety path along it. But then there's a break, if you look at the right top of that map there. Parts of the nature preserve are just grass areas, but there's environmental education signs inside. And when our team was out there last week, saw a buck out there. It's a pretty rich area. Here is the south, I would say south edge of the nature preserve. If you look here where this grass berm starts, this is part of the nature area. The power lines start to stretch down along White Lake in this area. And maybe there's a better place for a crossing where there's not 3 lanes of driving and turning plus acceleration and deceleration lanes. Maybe there's a better spot where there's less lanes. This is the south edge of that nature preserve. The boardwalk transitions from concrete over into a grass pathway, part of the preserve.
Who owns that? Is that a township asset, or is that?
No, Parks is Stonewood,
Okay, that's what.
Johnson. Or Johnson's family.
I think you are.
I don't.
We also have a railroad crossing on this stretch of road, which is altogether not terrible, but might be inaccessible for some people who are riding a bike possibly, or a wheelchair, something like that. And it'd have to be assessed to make sure that it can handle them safely. And then as with other portions of the safety path, it ends, across the road is actually still Independence Township, but there's nowhere to go accessibly. So anyone crossing here has no crosswalk and has no ramp to get to the other side.
Where does the township part end, right there?
It's about, I'd say, 300 yards past that statue of the cemetery.
So it would kind of be the sidewalk going to nowhere then, because unless Waterford ties into it, it doesn't really make sense to put a
Same, but
sidewalk there.
it could also link from the corner across White Lake Road. We're looking
Towards-
at, this is Andersonville Road from left to right. So we're looking across Andersonville, and
Yeah, to
there
go to
could
the
be.
other corner, the kitty corner.
Correct, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Good bench spot.
And then this is a 6-foot pathway.
Going to cemetery.
It would actually end about the entrance.
Yeah. And we did look at the cemetery is gated on this corner all the way to the entrance further south, so.
But
it's not-
Independence is just about to that entrance, right?
I think so.
If the sidewalk would go to that, and then they go in.
Possibly. This is the character of the other side. This is the west side. There's no safety path by standards, but there is a 6-foot, even, smooth walkway in good shape. Maybe a little edging needed, but that's it. You can see that there. That's Alex's Gourmet Market on the west side, and pretty active commercial plaza on the left side, or right side of the screen there.
So that left side, the L shape is all 6 foot? It's not
Yes,
technically a safety
correct.
path, and on the right side it looks a little bit wider. It
Yep.
is a safety path?
6 and 8. And this moves further east along Andersonville. You can see the 6-foot pathway simply ends at this drive. And there's another pathway that picks up right here, but it is, again, kind of a path to somewhere, but not really, it's not obvious to anyone new to the area who doesn't frequent the area where to go. So what does someone who wants to go north do here? They probably jaywalk, right? They're not gonna turn around and come back. So at this point, we were opening it up to questions, but I'm happy that we got questions sporadically along the way. It does help keep the presentation going, but to you and residents of the community, where are there unsafe areas that make you feel uncomfortable? Where are there visibility concerns where you can't see what's happening? Are there any specific areas. I guess I'll pass out a couple of these maps.
Yeah, like coming from 59 towards like that Village Park area, there's like this little slope thing, and where he pointed out across the street, that's where the kids walk across to the bus stop.
Okay.
So like if you're coming that direction from 59, where all those trucks are coming from 59 to 75, they have no clue. So like, well,
Okay.
I think it would be great to have a crosswalk there. I also don't know that truck drivers are really gonna notice a blinking light when they're just in a hurry to get to 75. So I don't know how you fix that without spending $700,000 to put one of those things across the road. But while tying into the sidewalk across the street, because I don't know that Parks and Stonewood's gonna give you the easement there on property that is part of that nature preserve. I just don't know that. To continue your sidewalk, like how do you deal with things like that?
That's, that's the fun of it. You start
And this
getting
is
into
a
discussions about easements, seeing if there is any appetite for having pedestrian bike trail, you know, with a lot of preserves, they're fine with pedestrian traffic, but they don't want bike traffic in there because it tends to rut up the ground and causes ecological damage, so, those are discussions, you know.
And then like that one's complicated, you have DTE power lines there too, so I'm assuming they already have an easement to get in there, so there's trucks that come in and out of there too to deal with the power lines, and they have to keep it trimmed down, so like, I think you have more than one obstacle probably there.
Yeah, and actually, that was something that we were talking about before we started the meeting, is wouldn't it be ideal if you could use the, I think it's an ITC corridor, as a route? You've got all of the space, it's as you said, relatively clear. Is there an opportunity there? And it's just a matter of having those discussions. I know ITC is in discussions with multiple other communities, especially in Livingston County, where they're really looking at that. So those are opportunities, you know, for long-term discussions. For our immediate task, it's probably outside of the scope, but it's something that would be worth thinking about.
I think as far as like, safety paths, it's important to put one at, Parks of Stonewood, because, you guys probably have kids that wanna get to downtown Clarkston.
Well, right now, they leave our sub and they stay on this side and they walk in that grassy area and they get to the corner and then they try to book it across the street, across 5 lanes, and right now, I don't have kids that I let go that far yet, but I don't know how you fix that without, first off, keeping the sidewalk going on one side, because either way, you're asking kids to cross a road.
Right.
But like, they're already on, I mean, you're either on the side, if they come out Stonewood, right, because we can come out both sides, you're either coming out Stonewood and you're on this 3-foot path, what I call it, I don't know what it really is, but you got this itty bitty one on the side of Dixie Highway, or you got grassy areas, or they book it across to like, what's that road? Tappan, or that side of the road.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I don't know what would be easier or cheaper. I mean, I would love sidewalks to go to downtown Clarkston, but like in my head, which avenue
Yeah,
is
that's-
better? Because you got a couple landowners here, and I feel like through the years, Dick, hasn't this been talked about before with this area and sidewalks, and we've tried to get easements and we never can get the easements? No?
No, I don't
Okay.
think that's been a problem. I don't think that, we're only dealing with actually 2 property owners on the west side.
By the hospital side? Is that,
Yeah.
okay.
Clearance site, and then that vacant property is.
Yeah, which
most of the
is-
site. It's either Park to Stonewood or Dave Johnson's still owns
Yeah,
most of that.
he's still, yeah, he's Parks and Stonewood, yeah.
Yeah.
So you got the parks, and then you got the hospital healthcare one, and then on White Lake, you got, more of the hospital healthcare. I thought they were the ones that were the problem, not Dave. No? They're willing to give easements that we know of?
Well, I don't think we were asked.
Oh, we have not, okay.
Yeah, But they've never, I mean, I don't think it, I mean, the only reason that it hasn't been extended down there is because that side of the property, the majority of it has not ever been developed.
Mhm.
If it would have been, we would have required a safety path to go in.
So like if that commercial development would have been put in the front of parks, then that would have had to be continued?
Yeah.
Got it.
Is this safety path part of an ordinance? Like, because it looked like the new car wash that went into, they had to put a safety path in, correct?
It's part of the PUD, I think.
But obviously Alex's didn't have to put an 8-foot.
It's probably because back then, they probably were required to put in a sidewalk.
Mhm.
Nobody thought to make it a safety path.
Okay.
But they did put
There
the
was a
retaining
space
wall.
issue there. That was the problem there.
Really? Because it looks pretty wide.
Yeah, again, history, I'll have to, I don't remember.
Isn't that why they had to put a retaining wall there though too, was because of the space and the
Yeah,
slope?
There was a grade issue and a space issue.
Okay.
Because every new development is required to put in a 6-foot, an 8-foot wide safety path by our ordinance. However, there have been circumstances where there have been deviations from that standard
Mhm.
because of some limitation because of right of way or space, and I don't remember what it was with Alex's.
Yeah. And I mean, I think it would be silly to redo that when there's other areas that don't have it. But I think we should focus on areas that are gonna get used, and I think that, I don't live in Parks,
It'll
but
get used.
if I had kids in there, I would think, they're gonna go that way, they're gonna cross over, they're gonna go to Walgreens, they're gonna keep going, they're gonna go to downtown. That looks like a usable site, so that seems like a good area to focus on.
When us grown-ups leave the neighborhood, we just cross directly there, and then you take the sidewalk like by Neiman's, and hope you don't get hit when the sign's getting hit, and then you continue. So, there's a couple obstacles there, but like, that's,
Well, the bus stop being right there too, where the adults
there's two, there's
cross.
one on one side, and then there's one on the other side.
Yeah,
So
but on
they
the
have
White
both
Lake side,
sides.
if, we talk about doing the, like, crosswalk, right, making that an actual crosswalk, that would help at least give the kids
To get across the
to
street.
get across and get onto something that's existing and safe already. Once you get to the White Lake one and that gets redeveloped and redone in the way that it's sense, that can get handled at that point in time to continue them on. But, yeah, I live across the street from that, and I totally agree, it needs to have something there.
Supervisor?
So, this is the same thing I asked the safety path, is that part of this, we should be scoring this. And we're not scoring it from what's an easy to what's gonna be extremely difficult or extremely expensive, and go through, because I think as we sit up here, we know what we would like to see, but we don't understand quite the challenge involved with it. So I think that, if we could go through and say, look, you can get this stretch here done, no problem, super easy, go get it done. Even if it butts up to somebody like, we got that gentleman on Sashabaw, that I believe that eventually we can pressure into if the sidewalks are coming and he's the only stopgap, right? It becomes more of a peer pressure type thing. But to start with him, to have his permission right out of the gate might be extremely difficult. But I'd rather see us go through and say, okay, on Dixie, here's an area that would be very easy to go through and do. It's not gonna be perfect because it's gonna still butt up against this crappy one or this crappy end here, but we can get it done. And let's take these things in incremental steps instead of trying to eat the elephant in one bite.
I think that the goal, though, is that you want to have something on paper saying, this is the overall path as, if money were no object, we know that this is how we want it to go, we know what we want it to look like, we know what amenities need to be on there. From there, I think you're absolutely right. I've developed matrices for other communities where you go through parcel by parcel and you rate it. Is there a wetland? Is there a steep slope? Are there utilities in the way? It takes a little bit of effort, but it's a way to then go through and go, okay, it looks like if you add these up, that is probably the easiest route and one that we can get done right away. And the question also becomes, do you want to go for the low-hanging fruit, or do you want to tackle one of the more difficult ones right up front, get that done, and then go back and do the other ones just as a matter of course or of the time?
Well, and I think that's a great question, but I mean, without having that scoring, we don't know what we don't know, and, moving those lights, it seemed like it was an easy thing, but oddly enough, when we got the quote from MDOT to redo the whole intersection at White Lake and Dixie, they forgot that they had to move them, and they charged us $750,000 to move 3 poles.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when you sit there and look at those, I mean, those are the things that concern me, that when we look at these things, we can sit up here all day long and say, I really think we should have it here, but I think we need the scoring.
Checklist.
Well, to your point too,
Mr. Carl, that's supervisor file to you. No, I'm kidding, I'm kidding, I'm kidding.
I'm sorry, excuse my informality. You know, and it's also gonna be dependent on, I think, what's gonna be completely township funded and the possibility of where those projects are, where you're gonna be able to match it with some types of, other types of funding.
That was gonna be my second to that,
Yeah.
to the master, I'll call it a master plan, have that on paper, because
Yeah.
2 years from now, you're gonna attempt to get a grant for a project that's 5 years out.
Right.
And they won't even entertain it if you don't have a master plan.
Right.
And I agree with that, and that's what we've tried to do with the safety path, is start to get that all laid out and everything else. But I think without a doubt, there's some coordination that needs to happen between the DDA, the safety path, and even the CIA. And say, okay, who's gonna pick up what little pieces here and there? And instead of everybody kind of looking at their own myopic plan.
Right.
And that's what I think we're missing, but along with that, the scoring, I think, is gonna be pivotal, because I sit on the safety path, and we've got a bunch of people there that have been sitting on $2 million for 2 years and haven't spent a dime of it. I think they just recently spent some.
I'll tell you, the big challenge that I've had doing that scoring in the past is, even if you're trying to make it as objective as possible, there's always subjectivity involved. you know?
Always.
And so like, you know, what characteristics do we want to use to apply to that, you know? In some communities, it's been, is it within a half mile of a park or a school, you know, that bumps the score up. You know, does it have steep slopes, that bumps the score down? The question becomes, how much do you, so I mean, again, not dismissing what you're saying at all, I think it's an excellent idea. But it is something that takes a little thought and discussion ahead of time to make sure we understand exactly what you guys value the most, so that that score really reflects the community desires.
So we haven't met, as we, you know, then you would understand, I don't care about how far away from a park it is, I care about the cost. Okay? So when I was saying I wanted to score on the cost, difficulty versus cost. We can add a whole other layer if we want on top of that, but I'm looking more at the cost.
Right.
I should have warned you, Chris.
Have you guys done a sidewalk in a community, like on a Dixie highway where it's 55 miles per hour and you have limited space from the sidewalk to the road? Have you done one, and like, how has it worked, or?
Yes, we have, I mean, the Sash Bar Road one, I don't know if that's truly 55, but it's.
Right here, this
Yeah.
Sashba?
Yeah.
In Clarkson? Yeah,
in
okay.
In Independence. Clintonville Road is another one that's offset from the road. And each of them, I believe, have been very safe.
Right, but they're not as close to the road, I feel like. Like, I mean, that's my concern, is you're gonna put 8 feet here, but if you're this close to the road and a kid trips and falls, you're in Dixie Highway.
Yeah, we have done them, on MDOT roads before,
Yeah.
where we have offset them about 3 feet from the curb.
Which is why you
And
need 12 then, is that where you're getting that?
We're, yes, there's a
Okay,
buffer in
yeah.
there. I guess my point in that is, generally when you do that offset, if it's a high-speed area, you might be looking at guardrails, you know, some sort of protective lineators like what was outlined here. There are mechanisms to make these safer.
Which
Yeah.
just raise the
So-
cost?
I have a shop right on Dixie, on the south side of Dixie. So how are you gonna address in front of my parking lot, in front of my store? Basically, the sidewalk puts into my parking lot. And it's, as it is, it's pretty tight. You know, that's mean I'm gonna eliminate the front of my store for parking, so it's gonna kill my business at this point. So how are you gonna address the situation?
I don't have the answer for you today, but those are the type of conversations that are gonna be had with property owners that are faced with similar challenges.
If I may,
Okay.
your situation is no different than like Bowman Chevrolet.
Mhm.
It's the same thing. And those are circumstances that you, I think, realistically, you're just gonna make do. I don't, you know, there are going to be circumstances where you're not gonna build a brand new safety path through an existing parking lot.
Yeah, you could.
Yeah, and every time you cross the driveway, that's a new challenge.
Yeah.
But this goes back to as somebody's using your parking lot, they see that it's there, they know what it is, or they at least have an idea that this isn't your normal parking spot. And it's just making people aware. And that's 90% of the battle right there. If you're aware that there are other uses around you besides being in my car, it makes a huge difference.
So you're saying that, in essence, that Chevy dealership parking lot is a safety path with the proper striping and the proper look. Might not be the best application, but it serves a function. It's already flat and already level.
Yeah, I mean, this is the problem of the built environment, and that's what Dixie Highway really is.
Right.
But, that still doesn't mean there's not opportunities to improve that whole pedestrian network. It's just gonna be a couple of spots where, again, you just have to sort of make the best kind of route through there. Because basically, those people are walking past your property anyway.
Absolutely, especially the gym next door to me.
Hopefully, what we're hoping to do is stop by.
Yeah.
But really, it's all
Yeah.
5 of those buildings there in that
Yeah.
stretch,
Yeah.
because you
Right.
all are built right to the property line, pretty much,
That's an
so.
old Dixie, basically.
Correct.
you know.
And it's really just that stretch right there, that they're that tight with the parking lot is what I would consider a safety path anyways.
Right.
Yeah.
Bowman and the.
Just charge them
Ritter
every time they
Plaza.
come in your parking lot, $5, you gotta buy a bottle of booze.
But again, the long view is, eventually, some of these properties are gonna redevelop. They're gonna combine, there's gonna consolidate, and that's when, as Steve suggests, you have that long-range plan, that's when you have at least, you probably can address some of those things.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, would you like us to maybe compile a list of things that we want to maybe focus on? I know you're talking about the rating system, but, you guys are presenting to us, I'm sure you guys want some feedback. What's the best way to get you that feedback so that you can start to focus on, certain areas, or maybe we can get some pricing on certain areas. I'd like this meeting to, evolve into something more, and not have you come back to then ask more questions.
Yeah, so I guess really, what's the next steps,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So Gus, David and Sam and I met 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. and
Approximately.
Started having that discussion, but I'd love to hear from all of you what are those areas that you know are a problem, and just give me a reason why. I've got business cards with me, I'll make sure you've all got it, or David's got my email address as well. Where does it make sense to have a mid-block crossing and a crosswalk, so that we can start to slow down the traffic and get people safely across the road? I know that Gus would like one by his business, but is there another spot where that might come into play? Where are there opportunities? And we've got some more slides, I don't know if we wanna go through all of them yet tonight, but the idea of having a respite, where you've got somewhere where you can, again, put that bench and sit down and relax. What are some locations that make a lot of sense for that?
But like, we have them on Dixie Highway by T-Mobile, and I've never seen a person sit in it.
No,
Never.
Never.
Has
So
anyone ever?
It comes down to how you do it. So when we did our tour, we were walking by Lakeview Cemetery, where there's that lonely little bench kind of tucked down in the grass. And I was amazed to see people cutting through there, and somebody actually used it. I think if you do it properly, where you offer some shade, where you offer maybe a charging station, there are benches that have solar arrays on the top, so you can plug in your phone and charge up if you need to in an emergency. Those types of things can make a difference, and there isn't gonna be a cut and paste type solution. Each designation is gonna be slightly different. Some more elaborate than others, some might be just a simple bench. But it's something that, like, one of the ideas that we kicked around was in front of Kroger, maybe that's the spot to have a bike rack, so you can park your bike, go in, do your shopping, come back out, jump on your bike and go back out, because believe it or not, some people do use their bikes for more than just recreation, they actually use it to get around town. So those different things that you think we need to be aware of, where there's something special, where you think there's a real opportunity, I'd want to hear about it. because then we can take that and work with it from there. So we had a few hands coming up. I don't know who's first, but go ahead.
My thought on giving suggestions is to concentrate on the White Lake Dixie interchange that is already in progress, so that if there is something we would like to see there that's incorporated with, like the extra striping and things, that's incorporated with the project that's ongoing now. And so we're not backtracking, and considering that's supposed to start here in a year, whatever, that would be probably, you know, high on the agenda is my, but that's the only thing on Dixie Highway that I know as far as major construction goes, that.
One, we do have a, do you mind if we just
We
jump
should,
ahead a little bit?
we'll go forward, we've talked a lot about crossing and safety paths and safety in general. The next few slides will cover the actual streetscape and what makes the character, or a destination, or something that tells you you're in Independence Township. And that's maybe just as, if not more important to creating a feeling or a place, rather than just a sidewalk and a crosswalk.
I know
So-
John had a question before we
Go
move
ahead.
forward.
Yeah, it's really more of a statement to your point, Dave, about what are the next steps. I 100% agree with Tara and Kim selfishly, but I more agree with what Chuck is saying, because if we're gonna spend the money on this, I think we have to have some kind of a rating system, so I just wanna say that.
Gus, you had your hand up, did you?
Yes, at the same time, not trying to just talk about my building. Also, if you look at it, where the park, the Gateway Park, and extending all the way to my building, all these areas is like really tight, and I don't think so there is a room to make it, maybe just to keep it the way it is and just a little bit of improvement into it, to the safety path. But to do an 8 feet, I don't think so, there isn't any,
And there,
a
that
stretch.
may be the case. There, I worked on a path, it's a different animal than here, where to Chuck's point about having the one landowner who held out and just refused to give an easement. They had 6 feet available between the right-of-way line and the edge of the road, and they had the pathways come right up on either side of them, still didn't budge, so they said, okay, fine. And they put in a curb and gutter, put the path right up against the road, and people are using it daily. So there, you have to get creative when you're doing these things. It's not, we're not in the green field, to Dick's point. We can't just go plop, here's this nice, great, beautiful, straight pathway all the way through. There's gonna have to be some adjustments, but the goal is to make it as consistent as possible, so you don't have that uncomfortable feeling that all of a sudden you're going from an 8-foot path down to a 6-foot path, back out to an 8-foot. This one's on the side of the road, this one's got a buffer. As much as you can to try to smooth those transitions out, that's what the goal should be.
Chris, let's ask the board how much longer you want to go here. Mr. Chair.
I don't wanna go much longer at all. I thought we were done when we got to this slide.
I have a suggestion, just not for you guys, but for the board, but you guys can weigh in. This project is mammoth. I mean, it's gonna take a ton of time to figure out all the little nuances. I would be my suggestion, like with the CIP projects I did with the township, is that you need to divvy this up and assign sections to different people to say, okay, you know, like if Tara has a desire over here on White Lake by herself, have her look at the front of it and figure that out and work with them and so on and so forth. Maybe somebody has something else somewhere different, and just assign it, and that way we can have a little bit more meaningful one-on-one conversation. And then we can come back to the board and come back together and say, okay, I think this is what we would like to do here, and make, each of us make our own little presentation, so on and so forth. But I think if you try to do anything, we're never gonna move. I mean, it's just too big of a project, too many details, too many this, that, goofy little turns that, from a collective board. No, I think you just need to put 1 or 2 people in charge of different sections. That would be my
Yeah,
recommendation
no,
to you.
I think that's a great idea. I was thinking, you know, there could be a subcommittee for just the crosswalks, 'cause I feel like the crosswalks is something we could tackle relatively quickly.
That should.
The existing
should be easy.
crosswalks, maybe adding that other side of, by Bowman Chevrolet. I'm not talking about adding one in front of your business. I think that is gonna take a severe study, and it's already, just thinking about it is risky of getting somebody hit there, but taking care of the existing crosswalks could be one, and then, you know, additional little sitting areas could be another subcommittee. So I agree with you that we should definitely divvy it up, so that we can get some progress going on, and then get that to you guys.
What do you do like across two driveways? Like take the Neiman's parking lot on White Lake. Like what do you do for crosswalks there? Like do you put a stop here and a stop there so people know that there's people crossing?
Yeah.
Or it's just
Like,
figure it out?
It's a commercial parking lot.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a, oh yeah, sorry, it's a commercial parking lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's like a sidewalk on this side, you got an island in the middle, you cross through the island, and then you're back to the other side.
In
That's
and out,
a
right?
very traditional type of a crossing.
Yeah.
You'll see that in any downtown area.
But like there's this
Stop
hill
signs.
too, so like you're going into, like that just, there's nothing we can do to make it safer. The sign's been hit like 6 times in the last 2 years too, so like that's why I'm saying like, while we're talking about safety paths, to me, that's a concern of you're crossing an area that keeps continuously getting hit by vehicles. Like, is there anything you can do to make it safer? Other than fix the idiot drivers, which none of us can do.
I know that there was one spot when we were walking, and I apologize, I don't know exactly where it was, where they did have a pedestrian activated signal, and then the 2 drives.
No, it's not there.
So that would be one option if there's a signal there. I don't know if there is.
No,
No.
this does not. It
Okay.
just, it's, you kinda going uphill into an island. The sign was probably broke while you were there, cause it's still not fixed, and then you cross again and you're almost to Dixie Highway.
And I'm sorry, what was the name of it again?
It's the Neiman's parking lot, I think
Okay.
it's called White Lake Commons, is
Oh,
the
okay.
commercial development.
Yeah, we're at White Lake in Dixie.
But like, I don't know if that's a landowner discussion, like that's on them. I'm assuming they own to the road without looking at.
But I also think
Parcels.
that part of that issue of right where that sign is that people get in the right-hand lane
For
to
sure.
go all the way up to the light
100%.
instead of turning into.
And people are turning it left.
And instead of turning into the market like they're supposed to, and then getting over in that lane after the fact.
I
They're
just
just
meant-
not driving that
Right.
right, but I don't know if we could mark it or denote it in some different way to make them drive it correctly and not get over until after that intersection.
I
Or
feel like
move
it should
that
be a right
intersection
turn
down.
only exit. That's what I think.
So
That's a
MDOT
big thing.
is going to
Yeah.
make their requirements for the alignment of Dixie Highway and White Lake. That construction project's slated to start in 28, right?
Right.
Yeah, so I mean, anything we do in there is gonna be temporary. Just FYI, they're gonna move the roads and everything else.
Oh, so
But
it
we
doesn't
should be-
even
And we're
matter.
gonna have a
Back
right,
that
right turn lane at the Walgreens there put in.
Got it.
So, I mean, that whole section's gonna be torn apart and rebuilt, just, so from anything we do, just understand that it's gonna be ripped out.
So it
But I
doesn't
think-
make money, it doesn't make sense to spend any money in an area that's
I
gonna be
mean,
torn up.
painting is painting, that's not that expensive, but I mean, anything beyond
Yeah,
that,
doesn't
I
make
would
sense.
say it's probably not a good
Got it.
idea to do
I
that.
agree not to spend the money now, but I think our ideas should be incorporated into
Coordinate it, yeah.
the coordination of redoing that area. And make sure it doesn't pass through, and then us come back in later, after they finish that intersection, and say, oh, let's mark it up now.
And that might be an opportunity to, as you're saying, to use paint to designate how you want this to be long-term. As MDOT puts in the improvements, then they make it more permanent with a curb, that physical curb in place of where the paint was before. But people have had an opportunity then to get used to that traffic flow. They won't be completely taken by surprise by any changes, and I think MDOT would be more amenable to making those types of changes if we can show that it works. So there are some opportunities there too.
Okay. I know that you guys put a lot together to put these 88 slides together. Is there anything else that you'd like to share before we move on that is crucial to this presentation?
I don't think there's any.
The end of it is really the optimistic look of what it could be.
Can
Yeah,
you
so-
share this slideshow with us
Yeah,
too?
can you-
Absolutely,
afterwards?
yeah, we emailed it to the media department, so
Yeah,
we can also
Jen
share it
has
with you
it,
guys.
So, I mean,
Okay.
we should be able to have it.
Cause
I
it would be
can get it
helpful
out
to
to
look
you,
at
yeah.
and get you answers to your questions.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, we've shown a few slides of what might it look like, or what might it include, so you could have a lot of these safety paths, we only need one on one side of the road, right? Provided there's a good crossing. So we don't have to provide it on either side of the road. How does it look like? Do those paved shoulders stay? They should probably go. Does it go behind the utility poles? In some areas, there's room to go in front. The utility poles and lighting poles are put at inconsistent widths away from the curb, so. Here's that wetland look, here's what we would look at doing, just visually. It's better to have 6 or 8 feet of landscape or grass rather than maybe 2 at minimum, right? So we want to provide comfort to the people using these pathways.
Let's see if there's somebody or.
And then what do these include? So,
Yeah.
looking at.
I think that most of the design standards, that's something that we're working through. We've had some good feedback already. If you've got some ideas on what you'd like to see in place, I'd certainly welcome it. This is what I was talking about with the hawk lights, where they've got a standalone pole. I know it's just still graphic, but those lights are bright and you can't miss them. So that would be, if you did a mid-block crossing, that's the type of thing that you want to have in place, so that, again, because you're not going to have enough pedestrian traffic at first to warrant maybe a full stoplight, but having that in place really makes a big difference. And there are also versions of that where they actually do have a traffic light that comes on only when pedestrian activated. Those are a little bit less common, but it's an option. We've talked about the light posts and how that might look. Again, does this all carry through as opposed to what's already there? Let's go to the next slide here. Getting into, I'm going through real fast. The Sasha Ball standard is the bench that we're using at the new Pocket Park, the Gateway Park. That's probably what you'd want to have to carry through. The one on the left is the one that's at Lakeview Cemetery. I talked a little bit about solar powered benches. That's something that's getting more popular.
For charging stations?
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
And lighting.
We talked a little bit with the group about bike facilities. Probably doesn't make sense for most of these spots, because the idea is you're getting through, right? You're not stopping as a destination. But at a Kroger, does it make sense to have something like that in place? Do you want a standard format? Do you want it to be artistic like these are? Wayfinding signage is a whole nother topic, but you've already got standard interpretive panels in place in some spots. Maybe there's some other opportunities then to really highlight something. Like the one that we're showing here is actually, again, at Lakeview Cemetery, and it's talking about traffic on Dixie Highway. But in the meantime, you've got Civil War veterans in that cemetery. Maybe there should be something like that there. Barriers and screenings, so knee walls, what have you, again, more with the bollards. Similar to the Sasha corridor, where you've got that style. Other elements, lots of opportunities, artwork, et cetera. And I'm just going through quickly to get to the last point, so as you can see. I'm gonna skip past landscaping for now, other than know that we've pulled together a plant palette using native plants to help with reducing the need for irrigation, but and provide better ecological benefits. There's opportunities for stormwater systems. The green quarters, how do we preserve what you've got there? There are some spots that have some actual decent tree canopy in place. And then these are just 3 examples that Keely St. Andrew from my office and I put together, showing what could happen at that intersection, where you take the safety path, have it go off on an angle down below into the valley, have some seating down there. We've got a little bit of a stormwater basin right at the front that connects into the existing stormwater facilities. And these are just different iterations of what that might look like. And this is something that could then carry over to different spots along the corridor. And I just need to know where you think there would be some good opportunities. It doesn't need to be anything this elaborate. Like I said, it could be just a simple bench, maybe a knee wall and a little bit of landscaping, but something to dress the corridor up a little bit more, make it more inviting for people who are walking and biking. I think
That's it.
that's it. There we
Yeah,
go.
we made
Got through
it.
it. We did it.
Thank you.
Good job, guys.
Yeah,
Thank you
thanks.
very much.
I'm glad you brought those last designs up, because that's what I was thinking about from our subcommittee meeting. Those are great ideas. So thank you, gentlemen, appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we're gonna move on. Item G, public comment. Nobody's here. I don't believe anybody's online. H, financial matters, verbal report by
Yeah, just
Mr.
real
Carlisle.
briefly, you're currently running with a $406,000 plus fund balance, primarily because you haven't spent very much money this year yet. Obviously, on consulting work, the Gateway project is still, hasn't moved forward. I mean, it is moving forward, but you haven't had any expenses associated with the actual construction yet. And this is before summer tax collection, so you'll be receiving additional revenues. And so, from a financial standpoint, you're well within budget and in good shape. Do you want me to just go right into other current activities?
Yeah, so item I, reports, resolutions, recommendations. So, yeah, current activity.
The Gateway project, as you are aware, they were delayed trying to get the stormwater management system in. But Jason Longhurst from Noack and Faust has indicated they had a meeting with the contractor. They're gonna be back on site in the middle of August because they went off this project and went to some other projects, and will be back under construction by mid-August. The one good thing about the delay in this is that they'll be in a better planting period by the time we're through summer with the landscaping. Otherwise, I know that some board members are disappointed with the fact that the project was delayed.
My only worry with that is we got delayed, initially with the stormwater management. What happens when, are they backlogging, we need these plants, are these ordered? And even when I asked, when is the stormwater management device or materials gonna be in stock, it was like an open-ended, hoping to get it end of June,
Right.
maybe July, which I didn't really understand, because if you order something, typically the supplier's gonna say it's gonna be here at this time. So I'm glad we have it, which is great, but now we're, 30 days out from
Yeah.
getting back to work.
Yeah. Well, we can, certainly can ask Jason if we do anticipate any further delays. He did not indicate that he felt that way, because he said the meeting with the contractor went well, but as you and I spoke about before the meeting, I'll get something more definitive from Jason about, they are still within their contract time-wise, but let's just make sure there's no more surprises.
Yeah, that's all we want. We just don't want, more delays. We wanted it in by July 4th. It's understandable. Stuff happens, materials we gotta wait for,
Yeah.
weather you gotta wait for. It would just be nice to know if they, in this time of planning, they have everything ready to go, so when they do get back to work,
Yeah,
we're moving
good
forward
question.
full
Yep.
speed.
Yeah.
I would also like to make a note that I had DPW go out there yesterday, and they took some pictures, and I believe they ended up calling Noack and Faust to put up a safety fence around there, because there was a 5-foot hole where that drain was. So I would ask Noack and Faust to make sure that you're monitoring that and making sure it's safe for the public, because it was right up against the sidewalk.
Yeah,
So-
I just heard that today,
Yeah, so let's just please make sure that we're protecting that side of it, the residents.
Okay.
Kids aren't that bright sometimes.
Try to ramp it.
I'm on video too, aren't I? I have 5 of them, so I get to make that.
All right, well, thank you for the update on the.
And the other two
Gateway
things are
project.
things that was part of the presentation, so I don't think I need to give you anything. The enhancement study, that's what we just did, and the landscape features design plan is what Chris is working on with the subcommittee.
Okay.
Okay?
All right, very good. So, no more public comments. And, anything else before we adjourn? All right, well,
Yeah, I just want to say thank you. I appreciate what you guys are doing. Actually think this was a fantastic meeting, because the town hall that we had here a couple weeks ago, there was a resident here who voiced his concerns, similar, Chuck, to your concern about the big hole. So I think this is great. I hope that people actually watch the meetings, so.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you. With that being said, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Thanks again.
Thank